You're looking at the most successful failure in the history of flight. Because the company that built this plane didn't get rich selling it. It nearly went bankrupt making it. And it bet everything not on the plane, but on the building it had to construct to build it at all. So how much does a 747 really cost? Not the answer on the price tag. Start with the easy answer. When the 747 first flew, an airline paid Boeing around $24 million for one. In today's money, north of $200 million. By the end of its life, the final version listed at around $418 million a copy. And you can see where that money goes. A 747 is roughly 6 million parts. 150 miles of wiring inside a single aircraft. 4 engines, each one a multi-million-dollar machine in its own right, bolted under a wing the length of a tennis court. Building one is less like making a machine and more like assembling a small city. And pricing it is exactly what you'd expect: parts, plus labor, plus engines, plus profit. That's the price. But the price was never the cost. Because before Boeing could sell a single one of these, it had to answer a much more dangerous question. In the mid-1960s, the 747 didn't just not exist. The thing that could build it didn't exist. No factory on Earth was big enough. No assembly line, no hangar, no building anywhere could hold a plane this size, let alone several at once, in production. So Boeing went into the forest north of Seattle, cleared more than 700 acres of trees, and started building the only structure that could ever assemble a 747. What it built is still, today, the largest building in the world by volume. 472 million cubic feet of enclosed space. So vast that Disneyland would fit inside it, with room left over for the parking lot. So large that, before the climate was tamed, the building was said to generate weather of its own. This is where the cost stops being about a plane and starts being about a bet. The factory alone cost around $200 million to build in 1960s money. And the people. To design and build the first 747, Boeing pulled together a team that swelled to around 50,000 engineers and workers, who did it, from clean forest to flying aircraft, in about 16 months. They called themselves the Incredibles. Add it all up, the aircraft, the engines, the tooling, the factory, and the program to bring the first 747 into the world cost Boeing around $1 billion. In today's money, somewhere close to $8 to $9 billion. I foreknow 5. Here is the part the price tag never tells you. Boeing did not have $8 or $9 billion. It barely had one. So it borrowed. By the early 1970s, Boeing's debt had climbed past $2 billion. The 747 program was running at a loss. And then the timing turned cruel. The aviation market slumped. Orders dried up. In Seattle, the company that had just built the largest building on Earth started letting people go. By the tens of thousands. Aerospace employment in the region collapsed from around 100,000 to under 40,000 in a few short years. It got so bad that someone rented a billboard near the airport. It read, "Will the last person leaving Seattle turn out the lights?" For a stretch, the plane that was supposed to make Boeing was the thing most likely to break it. Every jet that rolled out of that enormous building was, for years, sold for less than it truly cost to build. Boeing wasn't getting rich. It was bleeding, one beautiful aircraft at a time. So why didn't Boeing simply stop? Because the same bet that nearly killed it had quietly bought something no rival could touch. There was no other plane this big. None. The 747 owned the most profitable corner of the entire industry, the long, full intercontinental flights, completely alone. Sauer's 635, and it kept that corner to itself for 37 years. Nearly 4 decades in which, if you wanted to fly the most people the furthest, you bought a Boeing. When arrival finally came, the Airbus A380, the double-decker built specifically to dethrone it. It cost Airbus an estimated $25 billion to develop. It never made that money back. Airbus canceled it in 2019. The 747 outlived the plane built to kill it. So, what does it really cost to build a 747? Not the $200 million on the early invoice. Not the $418 million on the final list. The real cost was the better part of $1 billion in 1960s money, close to $9 billion today, and the largest building ever raised by human hands, and a debt so heavy it brought one of the great American companies within sight of bankruptcy. That was the price of admission. And here's the number that makes the whole gamble make sense. Around 1,570 747s were built over 54 years. The plane that almost ended Boeing became the plane that defined it. The factory that nearly bankrupted the company is still, half a century on, the largest building on the planet. Think about what that means. To build one plane, a company built the largest enclosed space on Earth, hired 50,000 people, borrowed more than it was worth, and lost money on nearly every aircraft for years, and it was the smartest thing it ever did. The 747 didn't cost Boeing a few $100 million. It cost Boeing the company itself, wagered, and won back. That's the thing about the most famous plane in the world. The price tag was never the cost. The real cost was the bet behind it, the building, the debt, the near death. The years of losses hidden behind every clean take-off. That's what we do here. We find the bill that isn't on the receipt for the things you thought you already understood. Next time, what it really costs to launch a single rocket, and why the most expensive part has nothing to do with the rocket.